Syrian Arab Army maintains security in Kisab of Latakia's northern countryside after eliminating great numbers of non-Syrian terrorists. Iraqi army purges of most of Salah ad-Din governorate and parts of Al-Mosul, eliminating more than 300 terrorists. 134 countries announced from Bolivia their solidarity with Syria in the fight against terrorism. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mirado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. In Idlib, terrorist groups attacked the city of Jisr al-Shughur and Ishtabrak town by mortar shells, killing a number of civilians and injuring others, and also inflicting heavy material damage. In Aleppo, Syrian Arab Army units foiled an infiltration attempt by terrorists who tried to sneak into the municipality building in Ar-Ramuse. A military source said that Syrian Arab Army killed many of the terrorists and injured others. Residents of Kisab started returning to their houses after the Syrian Arab Army restored security and stability and kicked off the terrorists from the area, as the maintenance workshops continued their work to repair the infrastructure. Syrian Arab Army maintained full control over Jabal al-Nisr and the points 714 and 719 in Latakia countryside. Earlier, the General Command of the Army and the Armed Forces said in a statement that after eliminating scores of terrorist gangs and inflicting heavy losses on them, units of the Syrian Arab Army, in cooperation with the National Defense Forces, restored security and stability to Kisab city in Latakia's northern countryside by carrying out a series of accurate and successful operations in which control was tightened on An-Nabain town and the surrounding areas. The statement pointed out to the importance of this achievement in terms of the geographic location of Kisab and also in smashing the illusions of the aggressors and their tools who dreamed of securing a marine port and establishing a zone along the borders with Turkey to be used in launching terrorist attacks against Syria. The Syrian Arab Army unit seized large quantities of weapons, ammunition and vehicles which were left by the armed terrorist groups who fled under the heavy strikes of the Syrian Arab Army, including rockets, mines, explosive devices, mobile hospitals, RPG launchers, gas cylinders, heavy and medium-sized machine guns, 2 Turkish ambulances, Saudi sleeping bags and flags on which their takfiri slogans were written, such as Jabhat al-Nusra, Kataib al-Sham, Ansar al-Sham, Ahrar al-Sham, etc. Increasing numbers of prison inmates in several governorates have been released in implementation of the legislative decree number 22 for the year 2014, which granted a general amnesty on crimes committed before June 9th, 2014. Attorney General of Hama, Ayman Dakkak, stressed that 130 inmates have been released according to the decree. Dakkak stressed that new numbers will be released during the upcoming days after studying their files. The released persons in turn expressed happiness over this step. Meanwhile, Attorney General in Aleppo, Brahim Ahlal, said that 240 prisoners were also released according to the amnesty law. In Al-Hasaka, Attorney General Nasser Dali said that 65 inmates have been released so far in implementation of the amnesty decree. Ad-Dali pointed out that other 5 citizens benefited from the decree as they were exempted from punishment after they paid due financial accounts. Meanwhile, in Homs, Attorney General Khalid al-Najjar said 37 inmates have been released from Homs Central Prison according to the amnesty decree. In Homs countryside, Syrian Arab Army units killed many terrorists and injured others, destroying their weapons and ammunition. A military source said that Syrian Arab Army units killed many terrorists and injured others in the villages and towns of Asele and Al-Zafaraniya crossroad in Al-Rastan, as well as in Deir Foul, Housh Hajjo, Kisin, Ain Hussein, Al-Nasriya, and to the south of Al-Brej, destroying their weapons. Other Syrian Arab Army units foiled an infiltration attempt by the terrorists into Qamqam gas facility, killing all the terrorists. Meanwhile, Syrian Arab Army units targeted the terrorists in the farms surrounding the town of Msharshuh, killing many terrorists and injuring others. In Iraq, 10 people were killed in an attack by the terrorists on Tel Afar in Ninawa governorate, north of the country. Insurgents tried to storm the district and they shelled several areas, killing 10 people and injuring 40 others. The military and security forces supported by the residents in Tel Afar succeeded in repelling the terrorist attack. A security source said that the residents and the government forces killed 18 terrorists. Back to our local news, Prime Minister Wael al-Halaqi affirmed that the government is keen to follow up providing the services and carrying out development in all cities, particularly in Deir ez-Zor, in order to rehabilitate the areas which were affected by terrorism and to find suitable atmosphere for the families to return back to their regions. Al-Halaqi, meeting a delegation of national reconciliation in Deir ez-Zor, affirmed that cooperation among the Syrians led to achieve remarkable progress in national reconciliation, which had pivotal role in restoring peace and security to the majority of Syrian lands, synchronizing with the victories of Syrian Arab army against the armed terrorist groups. During his meeting with the delegation of the Syrian community living in Poland, Czech and Hungary, Assistant Minister of Foreign and Expatriates Affairs Dr. Hamid Hassan asserted that the high turnout of the voters in the recent presidential election demonstrated the victory of the Syrian people's will and their keenness to determine their own future in the face of terrorism and its supporters. For their part, members of the Syrian expatriates asserted their adherence to the national principles, expressing their happiness for the victory of the Syrian people. Syrian students and community members in Russia turned out to their embassy in Moscow to celebrate President Bashar al-Assad's victory in the presidential elections, which witnessed a huge turnout inside and outside the country. The participants said that President al-Assad is a symbol of Syria's unity and sovereignty, hailing the role of the Syrian Arab army in confronting the terrorism to which the country is exposed. Syrian students and community members in Slovakia celebrated President Bashar al-Assad's victory as well, with the participants affirming that elections in Syria were a model of democracy and a successful pluralism experience in the country. In his speech at Group 77 plus China summit, the Bolivian president criticized what he called the imperial countries. President Evo Morales, who described the Security Council with the Non-Security Council and the Council of Imperial Interference Council, and called to stop its works. He added that the United Nations, instead of pledging security and peace, was helping in launching military operations in service for some countries. The reason for that, as Morales stressed, is to control the resources of the developing countries. In Al-Bahrain, Al-Khalifa forces arrested 8 citizens, including students, in an illegal breaking into operation to 20 houses in Ad-Darraz area, west of the capital, Al-Manama. The Bahraini Al-Wifaq Association asserted on its electronic website that these practices are systematic and continuous, calling the Human Rights Council, which is gathering in Geneva, to follow these violations and end the suffering of the Bahraini people. The authorities in Palmyra, Homs countryside, confiscated 2 archaeological artifacts stolen by terrorists who had excavated them illegally and hidden them in the area. A source at the province said that pieces which go back to the 2nd century AD are funerary art pieces, with the first one being a bust of a woman made of limestone and the other is a head of a priest, pointing out that the pieces were prepared to be trafficked outside the country. Under the motto, Syrian ruins are a heritage for humanity, and in cooperation with the Syrian Social Club, Mistura of Tourism held photographic exhibition in Canada, Toronto. The activity included photos for the Syrian archaeological sites before and after they have been damaged by the terrorist groups. Also, it contained different sections for the Syrian archaeological sites, Syrian food and clothes, and Syrian traditional industry, in addition to displaying promotional films about Syria and its touristic sites. And now over to latest and business market news, but after a short break, stay tuned. Iraqi army purges of most of Salah ad-Din governorate and parts of al-Mosul, eliminating more than 300 terrorists. 134 countries. In Idlib, terrorist groups attacked the city of Jisr Shughur and Ishtabraq town by mortar shells, killing a number of civilians and injuring others, and also inflicting heavy material damage. In Aleppo, Syrian Arab Syrian Arab army maintains security in Kesab of Latakia's northern countryside after eliminating great numbers of non-Syrian terrorists. Countries announced from Bolivia their solidarity with Syria in the fight against terrorism. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Mirado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus.